Welcome back to the Broadcast Podcast. Myself, Nazar Sayed, and with me, always, my brother, my co-host, Ahmed Bashaar Sayed.
What's going on, guys? I wasn't here the last episode. Hope you guys tune into that one.
Yeah, the Taylor Swift one, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
We had guest host Hassan Abbasi. He loves talking about Taylor Swift. And it was good. I liked it. We broke down. There was a moment where he sort of went super deep.
Where he was talking about happiness?
Yeah. I think he surprised himself as well.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. Love to see Hassan going full, profound. Once in a while it happens, but when it happens, we cherish it.
Yeah. So what are we doing here? Episode number 31. This is the last episode of 2020.
Yeah, it's a recap episode. It's a gratitude-filled, grateful episode, I guess we could say it. Full of gratitude. I'm so glad that we watched Soul last night, or whatever we watched it the night before. I think that's exactly what encompasses the entire 2020. Just that movie itself.
Yeah, it was, no pun intended, it was a soul-touching movie.
It was.
I was moved by it.
You could have done better than that.
I probably could have done better than that. But I watched it. And because the reason why we watched it was because obviously we have Disney Plus, but saw a lot of good recommendations, people recommending it.
It was in a lot of people's best movie of the year list, like top 10, top 15. And I totally see why. There weren't a lot of movies anyways to start with, but when you get a movie like Soul, it has to make the list. Pixar never misses with these kind of things.
Makers of Inside Out and Coco.
Inside
Both
Out, Finding
movies.
Nemo, Toy Story, Monsters, Inc. Incredibles? No, not Incredibles. But still, like, basically some of the best Pixar movies ever made. And then they come out with Soul. I was listening to a podcast, the Big Picture podcast today, and Sean Fennessy describes it in a really profound way. He says, Inside Out was supposed to tell you how to feel or what feelings are, and Soul was supposed to tell you who you are. And I think that's basically encompasses everything, especially in a time of complete turmoil like 2020, where you don't know anything about yourself. Your former self is just the shadow of what you are. And your future self, you don't even know if it's going to exist the way you think it is. And Soul was just like the perfect gift at the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, the gift at the end of the year, where you sort of sit back and you're like, okay, now what is my life actually?
Yeah, I mean, the movie talks a lot about your purpose and your spark and, why are we on this planet? Like, I think it touches based on existential dread to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then we only, spoiler alert, when Catch 22 comes to Earth and starts appreciating small things, a subway ride or somebody performing, eating pizza, having
joys.
all your senses being intact.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the movie, that's where Mr. G realizes that, my purpose, jazz is his spark, but his purpose is to just live every day and enjoy the little bits. This movie, that part of the movie made me recall About Time.
Oh, yeah.
Where, so in the movie About Time, the guy has this time traveling watch where he
doesn't have a watch.
But there's this tradition.
It's a device. It's a MacGuffin where the men in the family can travel through time.
Yeah. So, I mean, what the guy did with that time traveling technique was that he used to live every day twice. Once with all the stresses and everything that's going on.
That's the end of the movie.
Yeah. And then the second time he lives it just to live it.
Yeah.
But then he stops traveling back in time and he just lives every day once. And he wants to appreciate little things the first time that he experiences it.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gave a really strong message.
Wow, what a strong message.
Yeah. What?
That reminded me of that meme.
Which one?
Of the principal. Now that's a strong message.
Okay. I don't know.
You haven't seen the meme?
Oh, okay. The principal. Okay. Grape.
Yes.
Grape. Yeah.
That gives a strong message.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought I lost you for a second.
Yeah, no, I don't know what principal you're talking about.
No,
but this is the Saudi school.
The Saudi school one, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Watching Soul made me feel like there definitely is more than just chasing.
How did you feel about it personally?
purpose.
Can we say writing is your spark?
Yeah, it's my spark and my purpose. It's everything.
But
Writing.
why are you mixing both of them?
because for me they overlap. For me, it's a Venn diagram of purpose and spark. Like it gets me out of bed, and then when I'm on the table, it fulfills my purpose. I think when I'm 80 years old and I look back, I'll probably be every single time that I've sat down and written anything, I'll be like, yo, that's exactly what I was supposed to do here, and I'm glad I did that. And the regrets, I'm pretty sure that will come out. This is gonna be funny if I'm 80 and I'm still doing a podcast. That'll be hilarious. But coming back through my memories, I'll be like, every single moment that I haven't written, it was a moment wasted. That's what I think. Because eventually, ever since I started writing in like the age of 16, it was the only thing that gave me proper joy. It was the only thing that I thought I was extremely good at. People around me weren't as good at it as I was on it. It came easy to me, and I had fun doing it. Those are the three things that if you can encompass that, if that's exactly what makes you fit in, then that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
I think you're pretty lucky. Like if at 16 you realized, and I remember like because we grew up together.
Really?
You would English was always your forte. Like you were always excelling. Like, I don't know, you got like B's and C's and everything else, but English would always be something that you excelled really good at.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're gifted with that writing, like short, like story writing ability.
Yeah.
I
don't know if it's a gift, but I really worked hard at it as well. Like reading a lot, writing a lot.
But what I was trying to say is that you're lucky to find it at such a young age.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes have midlife crises because they're like, okay,
quarter life crises.
What the hell am I doing here? Like, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
They don't know what their purpose is.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And the thing is, I'm so glad that I found the thing that I'm good at, which literally is a root to everything else. So like this podcast, we had to sit down, write it, what we're going to talk about, what we're not going to talk about. Those were plannings that harken back to my like outlining days when I'm outlining a short story or a novel. I take those skills and I apply it to the podcast, to my YouTube stuff, to article writing, to literally listening to music, critical thinking.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Those theories I apply to day-to-day life. Why is that person acting like the way they are? Why is he upset? Why is she annoyed? Whatever it is, you can go molecular and literally find out the DNA of the root of the problem. And then when you're doing that, you're basically just reverse writing.
Yeah.
And it's single-handedly changed my life. Literally, like reading a book, I watch a movie. All of these, like this.
Anytime you consume art.
Anytime I'm consuming anything, it's coming through the filter of a consumer and then a writer.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful tool to have personally.
And I think it takes one to appreciate one as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, really? You're a writer now?
No, I'm not. I'm just talking about you. So, I mean, talking about sparks and what gives you joy, I think for me, like it's something that's been very constant in my life is cricket, watching, playing. And I think it's so funny. We were just watching the Pakistan-New Zealand test match. And on day 5, my whole family was sitting and we had some friends over as well.
Our whole family
was sitting. Yeah. So, I mean, and there was this guy who was like 80 years old sitting there at the ground with the stick. He could barely walk. But my dad's like, that's going to be you in the next 50 years.
100%.
And I was
that
like,
is going to be you.
That's probably going to be me. Because I don't know, it's just been something that's been so constant in my life. And I think just like you said, like on a level of playing the game, I've always been above average. So it's something that I've excelled at.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, like, when people ask me in interviews, like, what do you do outside of school? I always like to mention, I play sports. I have
competitive sports.
Yeah, cricket. And I think
captaining it as well.
What I like to say is that cricket's taught me, or sports in general teaches you something that no classroom can ever teach you. And that's how to handle defeat.
Yeah.
How to pick yourself up when you're down and get ready to, dust off the dirt and fight again.
Again, those were the tools that you needed to go through 2020.
You do.
Because if you didn't have that, like a lot of people who, like especially people who were acing at life pre-pandemic, felt the hit the most because maybe they hadn't accepted or felt the loss the way that the pandemic had enforced upon them.
Yeah.
So like suddenly they were at a high and then they just shot down and then they don't know what to do because they hadn't dealt with defeat like that.
Yeah.
And it's your testament that you were so into sports that every time that the sports kicked back and you were defeated, you took that lessons from it and applied it to your own life.
Yeah.
And suddenly when the world was literally at a standstill, you knew how to cope with it.
Yeah, no, and I think that the pandemic has, affected all of us. I think it's fair to say that it has affected
Yep.
everyone and anyone. And of all the things that, I've learned in 2020, I think one of the things that stands out, or one trait that I'm happy to have is gratefulness. I think that's the one thing that you can take care of. We're here, we're sitting here, we're privileged enough to sit here
Yeah.
and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from the pandemic for me was this podcast.
Yeah.
We started it in 2018 because we love talking about sports. We love talking about cricket.
Yeah.
And then it took us places like we went to the World Cup. We the Cricket World Cup. We like
We met a few cool people there that we made connections with.
and then we made connections with. And then because we had a platform like this, we were able to expand and broaden what we were okay at.
Yeah.
And I would say I think we found a sweet spot now where I think we're good at it now. To a
I'd
certain
like
extent.
to believe so.
Like even going back and watching the Irfan Juneja interview, I sort of cringe because I'm like, what was I asking him?
But the fact that you cringe and the fact that we look back and we're like,
That was only 9 months ago.
What were we doing there?
8
I think
months
it
ago.
shows that, we have grown. I think growth is very important.
Especially in this time. That's what I was saying. So it was very wonderful to like have a platform like this to just sit and vent.
Yeah.
And then being able to talk to people like Irfan Juneja and Matt Whitecross, Ghazi Akbar, Usman Samiuddin, these guys who are prolific at what they do.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to sit with us and talk with us. And then literally having firsthand advice and wisdom from these people who've made it or who've made something of their lives. It was profound. I was like sitting with Usman Samiuddin, I was like, you wrote a novel.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you wrote a book.
A book, yeah.
You're a writer. You write for Crick Info. I've read your work for years and years.
Yeah.
That's so, like, I would have never thought that this would have been a thing at the start of 2020.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people ask us how we managed to get these people on the podcast. And I think it's only them appearing on our podcast is only a testament to their kindness.
Yes.
And them going out of their way.
Because right now we're
to-
nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously we have plans and goals for this year, for this podcast, for our individual personal lives as well. And I'm pretty sure we're going to hit the mark. But it's really interesting to see where this started as basically just us hanging out, talking about cricket and literally lamenting the Pakistan cricket team, which we still do.
Yeah.
But then it's become something like, hey, let's talk about movies. Let's talk about Tenet. Let's talk about, like, bring Hassan over. Let's talk about Taylor Swift's new album. And then suddenly we're sort of at least trying to create a community where people want to engage with us and talk to us. And not just our friends, like other people as well.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you get like people like Matt Whitecross or Irfan Juneja. You get people, their audience that wouldn't necessarily pay attention to us, paying attention to
You
us.
suddenly tap into a different market in itself.
And it's great like, having those people just engage with you. It's so fun. Like I love it. Like especially on social media, which can be toxic.
Just the other day, I was just watching, like we got notifications for a comment on the Krish Vitlani podcast.
Yeah.
And there's a point in that podcast where we're talking about, what to expect from university. Does it matter where you go? And I think Krish had some really great insight. And there was a comment that said that, thanks for talking about that. It helped me a lot with making a decision on where I want to go.
Yeah.
And I think I'm like, that's impactful. Right?
Yeah, it is. Like I would never have thought that at January 2020 that I'd be sitting here making that kind of impact on people's lives. Just like, and it was just because we're bored. I think that's so wonderful.
Essentially.
That's why one of my biggest takeaways is of just life is because of social media and your mobile phones, it's taken away boredom.
Yeah.
Which is taken away space to create.
Yeah.
Like how many stupid things did we used to do in Karachi because we were bored? But then how many wonderful things came out of it? And same thing with this. Like just because we now have resources to do something like this, we just weren't bored enough to do it.
Yeah.
And now that once we were and we did it, now look at us. Like we have a home studio. We have like this whole stuff going on. People want to come and sit with us and talk to us. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's also like a great medium to vent. And I think of like in the process of growing up, I think we haven't been able to like spend enough time with each other.
Sure. Yeah. And
Like-
it's going to get less once we get older with like
Exactly.
wives and jobs and other stuff coming up.
Yeah.
It's just going to be like, yo, like this is why I appreciate the TPR boys so much. Like they have this really powerful friendship, the three of them. And because of that podcast, they get to stay in touch and we get to watch their friendship blossom.
Yeah.
I think it's so wonderful. Like, that's why I love listening to their podcast when I'm driving or whatever. It's just because when I'm listening to them, I'm like, those three, and then I'm the fourth dude, right? It's only the four of us. That's how it feels like. And I feel like this is what that is gonna turn into.
Or maybe even what John and Hank have.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
the Green brothers.
The
Vlog brothers.
The Vlog brothers. Yeah.
So
that's exactly what they have, and that's exactly how it started. Like, they both had a passion for nerdiness, and they went full throttle on it. And they're one of the biggest. They're the pioneers of YouTube. They started when YouTube was just a baby.
Yeah.
And look at them now. They have thriving careers, thriving ambitions, and they get to do what they want to do. I think that's wonderful.
For sure.
I feel like that's what we're gonna. I'm gonna put it out in the world. 2022, 2021. We get John Mayer on the podcast.
Let's get it.
That's how we know we've made
We're
it.
using the power of manifestation.
Manifestation. Like, we're gonna put it out there, and it's gonna happen.
Perfect. We wanted to do a
You have
year
some
in
notes?
review. I have some notes. I just
Hit me.
not many notes, but just a series of things that have happened this year. And I think looking back, if we get to live till 80, we look back at our lives. I think 2020 will be a standout year.
It's a blip
Not
for
only
me.
for
If
our-
I'm being honest with you, I don't remember anything that happened here.
Okay.
I don't remember anything at all. I don't remember what happened. All I remember is that there was a pandemic, and then everybody stayed inside, and I read lots of books.
It's like March happened, and then you blink, and we're here
exactly.
today.
I don't even remember what happened before March. Like, I feel like October 2019 was the last time I paid attention,
Okay.
and then I've been checked out.
So, okay. So let me just recall what happened. Okay. So this
hit
year,
me.
this extraordinary year in this century, it started off with Iran and the US having literally airstrikes.
Oh my God.
And then the US killed one of their famous leaders, and that became a whole...
The military leader. I
Yeah.
remember that. Oh my God. What was that, January?
Qasim Soleimani was his name.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was January. And then they had a huge ass funeral for him. And we thought this is going to be the end of the world.
World War III.
Yeah, World War III.
I remember that.
Nuclear strikes. And then Kobe died.
Oh my God.
I mean, did Kobe escape this pandemic? Is this a new conspiracy theory?
Can I just be honest? I don't get affected by celebrity deaths. Kobe's affected me way too much.
It hit hard.
I don't know why. Like, I had just gotten into basketball proper. So, like, I was starting to learn the myth of... Because everybody hears about Michael Jordan. He's the best ever. So, yeah, we knew MJ. But once... Because I had gotten into Kobe a little bit, and his how great he was, and he was the MJ of his era and all that. And then someone like that just passing away so untimely hit me so much. And with his daughter and his friends... I don't know why, but I still shiver and quiver when I think about Kobe's death.
Yeah.
To me, it still hasn't happened. And every time I read about it, it feels like I've been reminded.
Yeah.
And it's that whole emotional roller coaster all over
Kobe
again.
was like an icon of our generation.
Yeah.
And not just basketball, but like his grit, his determination, and the way he played the game, right? 5 rings, that's no joke.
Yeah. And he was a creative too. He won an Oscar for Dear Basketball. Like, it's just a great, huge loss. And every time I think about that, that's just... He had so much more to do, and his legacy will never truly appreciate what he was about to do.
Yeah. I mean, a huge part of our childhood growing up was just, wrapping a paper ball, throwing it towards, a garbage
trash
can,
can,
and just shouting Kobe. Kobe.
Literally, in Pakistan, people used to do that.
Yeah. So I think he's just, it's a big loss.
Yeah. I feel that every time I think about that. That's weird stuff.
And just as we thought things couldn't get any worse, I think in March, COVID cases began.
Yeah. I started hearing about it from Mohsen and Hassan from like December.
Yeah. And we were joking about it.
I was joking about it.
I go to a school where there's predominantly a lot of Asian people.
Yeah.
And they were wearing masks and gloves, and I'm like, what?
Wait,
what's
in
going on?
February?
In January, February.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And by I think the first week of March, like half of my class was in lectures, they were just wearing masks. I'm like, what's going on? Why are they like going overboard?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Right?
I was
Nobody
like,
was
what?
taking it that seriously.
Yeah, because this is something that's happening far away. It's not happening here. And then it came here.
Yeah.
And then everything just shut off. when the NBA shut off,
Yeah.
and then that's the day after that the schools are like went locked
Yeah.
down. It was
When the NBA
weirdest
gets
thing.
canceled, you know it's real.
Yeah. And the NBA got canceled twice this year because well, not canceled. They postponed some games because of Kobe's death, and then the pandemic just literally shut everything down. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, I think nobody's ever experienced in our lifetimes, in this generation of people, anything like this.
No.
Right? The last pandemic that struck the world was the 1920, the Spanish flu.
Yeah. I mean, there's been small like outbreaks here and there, like
With Ebola and the
and-
N1H1.
yeah, but nothing of this magnitude. And this is going to literally define the world for the next 120
Yeah.
years.
And this is not going to be the last pandemic. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
pandemics happen all the time.
Like, you can make Bill Gates to be out to be the biggest villain in the world, but he was right when he said 5 years ago that our war is not with each other, but with something that we can't even see.
Yeah,
on
and
the TED
this pandemic made me realize that it kind of exposed people to a certain extent.
How do you say?
Just I remember like mid-March going to the grocery store and everything being cleaned up, like all of the shelves are like empty, especially toilet paper.
Yeah.
So it made me realize that what the Joker said in The Dark Knight. When the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other. And we live in a first world country. We would like to believe that predominantly there's people that are more educated, more sensible people here.
Yeah.
But seeing all that kind of made me lose hope in humanity a bit. I'm like, what's going on? Why are we so selfish?
Okay, maybe that's your pragmatic, realistic, maybe even pessimistic self speaking. For me, it was quite the opposite. I thought that, the toilet paper stuff, that was dumb. Like, I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I feel like people came together. They started shopping local. They started going to like their independent bookstores or their locally owned shops and shopping there and taking out from there. Giving out masks, hand sanitizers, keeping their distance. For the most part, people were complying to what the government was telling them, even though they don't really trust the government. And that's a whole different podcast of why that's happened. But I felt the opposite of what you're feeling.
Okay.
To most degrees, I feel like people were a lot more civilized, at least in this part of the world, at least in this country, I should say, actually, not this part of the world.
There's also a huge, there's a big group of people that are anti-government, anti-COVID. It's a hoax. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Don't get the vaccine. You don't be a sheep.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know what the problem is with these people.
It's the lack of trust. That's what it is. Like, what's happened is people have sort of started living in their own echo chambers, and they don't hear the outside noise. This is for both the right and the left. Like, if you're a super pseudo liberal or super liberal, I shouldn't say pseudo, then that's all the information you're taking in.
Yeah.
And if you're a super right person, like you're super conservative, that's all the information you're taking in. So if that's all you hear all the time and you don't hear the other side, then how are you going to change the way you're thinking? You're not. And so if one part of the government, one part of public has lost their faith in the government, then they've lost it because they don't hear the other side. And that's why it's so important to stay in the middle, stay not neutral, but stay in the middle. Hear both sides. Because there are good people on both sides.
Yeah.
Super radical left and super radical right. You will hear sensible things coming out of both things. And it's you as a person need to decide what you want to act upon.
Yeah.
And this is why the whole anti-vaxxers thing is a thing. This is why the COVID is a hoax thing is a thing. Especially in our community, it's like a whole different thing. Like
in our community,
everything is a conspiracy.
It made me realize that we're living in the age of information, but at the same time, we're living in the age of misinformation.
100%. There's more misinformation than there is information. Like, Twitter had to literally put out a fact check under every tweet that the president of the United States tweets.
Yeah.
Think about that for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Well, it was his own doing and all that. I get that. But like the fact that there has to be these kind of precautions in place so the public isn't misled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're talking about anti-vaxxers. What about this? It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
What else you got on the list?
Then I have life in a bubble. We got NBA came back, cricket came back. We saw some good cricket play in the UK.
Yeah, Pakistan played some good cricket there too.
Yeah, and I think then the summer happened, and then the second wave hit,
Which was as expected.
which was expected. And I don't know. It's just I don't. I feel like North America, like USA and Canada, we didn't do
And Mexico.
and Mexico. Yeah, we didn't do the best job in containing the virus. If you look at places like New Zealand and Australia, I was just speaking to one of my friends who lives in Perth, and life is back to normal there.
Yeah.
Everything's cricket stadiums are packed with people.
Yeah, but you also have to realize that they're sort of cut out from the world, and they have a lot less population.
But life
than
is
we
back
do.
to normal. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it's easier to control there. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like they did 100% a better job with containing the virus at the border. Like if people were coming in, they had to quarantine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're positive or negative. You're quarantining regardless.
Yeah.
And that's something that we didn't, at least Canada didn't take heed to. Like I remember March, people were coming in from all these countries and they weren't quarantining.
Yeah.
At the airport. But the airport was like, it was conflicting information from everywhere. And that's what led us to like this outbreak, especially here. It's a lot worse in some other counties. I'm glad that we're in Durham region, but
yeah.
it's tough out there.
Yeah. And then so I guess that's just the whole year. What happened with you on a personal level?
On a personal level, I feel like this year was important in the sense that I needed a reset. I think everybody did. Once they settled down and realized, okay, this is going to be here for a while, let's just take it a day at a time. It was important to find that space, at least in my own head. I found time to, especially in the beginning, it was all chaotic, and then you sort of eased into it, and then you found routines and things that you liked. And like I started a YouTube channel. That was never going to happen if the pandemic didn't start. And I love doing it. I plan videos, I record them, I edit them, I put them up. I love it. I read a lot. I wrote a lot. I got into podcasts a lot. I was listening to podcasts so many times. I got into Call of Duty. That happened. On a personal level, I think I grew a lot. There was no stagnation. I wasn't put. I was moving. And I think that was important. That was important because if I had stayed put, then I would have sunk.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that...
What about you?
Okay, I want to touch base on you first, so we'll come back to me. One of the big things that happened in your life, a big change, I would say, is that you said goodbye to the Samsung family.
Yes, I am now an Apple man.
No, we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it.
Come on. Come on. It's beautiful. I love it.
Let me ask you something. A lot of like this pandemic it's screwed a lot of people in the head.
Yeah.
Right? From somebody who's looking at things externally, call it the bird's eye view.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that, there's, or correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Are you trying to fill a gaping hole in your life with materialistic things, with the newest iPhone? With the newest AirPods?
Excuse me?
Because I feel like when you ordered these products, you were like the most excited person ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the excitement is in the anticipation. I remember like anybody who would ring our doorbell with the package.
I feel attacked. Just by
you would be running towards the door.
Yes,
like,
sir.
is it my iPhone? Was it what it is?
Yes.
And then from getting the phone to the case to the AirPods, what have you
Is this an
achieved?
intervention? Did you plan this?
No, but I was gonna say I'm gonna attack you though.
Oh my
God. So what happened? Like,
Is there a gaping hole in my life that I'm filling with
materialistic
consumeristic?
the new John
things?
Mayer watch,
Okay.
the iPhone.
Yep.
What are you doing, man?
No, it's not. I just want these things. No, I'm not feeling any gaping hole. It's just that when you've ordered something and Roger says it'll come in a week and it's been 4 weeks, then you start to get a bit,
Okay.
shaky. The leg starts twitching.
Fair enough.
Your brain starts going places. No, I don't think I'm trying to fill any void with materialistic things. I learned very early on that materialistic things cannot fill those voids. When I spent a lot of money a couple of years ago on just random shit, it didn't go anywhere. I still felt horrible. The thing came in, I was wearing it for 2 seconds, and I was like, "This is not what I was expecting. I don't like this," because that wasn't what I was looking for. That wasn't supposed to fulfill me, anyways. It never does.
Okay.
If you're talking specifically about the iPhone, I was just ready to move on from the monotony of a Samsung because I think it was monotonous for me. This is even more monotonous. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing to do in here except for whatever I was doing on the Samsung. Just got to pay $40 more for it. But it was just a move I wanted to make for myself because I wanted to get away from my phone and social media as much as I can. And I think it helped. My screen time went down from 6.5 hours a day to 3. And I haven't even put restrictions on it yet, which I will soon. But 3 hours a day, I think is okay. And I want to make it down to like 90 minutes a day, hopefully. And that was my thought process about getting this. Yes, I was excited for it to come in because I felt like a kid again. I was like, oh, my gadget's coming in. My Super Saiyan Goku is coming in.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And the John Mayer thing, the watch was because I love Mayer so much that I wanted to incorporate him into my daily life some way. Because I feel like he's a modern day philosopher. He's amazing. And I feel like if I have something that's like him, then that philosophy may rub off on me.
Yeah.
That was the thought process there. Okay. The gaping hole has been filled. Just by the way. There is no materialistic thing that can fill it. The gaping hole is always filled when I read an hour a day at least, and I get to put in my 1,000 words.
Okay.
When I make a new
but
YouTube
you know
video,
how human nature is, right? Once we get something, we want the next thing.
Yeah, I've trained myself not to do that.
So are you content now?
For the most part, yes. I think I'm content. I'm zen for the most part. But the thing that moves me is that I'm not happy with when my art isn't appreciated or when my art doesn't reach its audience, I should say. Right? Like, say if I make a YouTube video and I've really like worked hard on it, I wrote the script, I shot this and that, and then it only does mediocre like it does what all the others do, then that kind of demoralizes me. And I'm working on that because that doesn't mean the video was bad or that doesn't mean my content was bad. It just means that I have to wait a little bit longer for that audience to find it. Because like with books, songs, any sort of art, the audience isn't ready for it. So like the way to say it is that if you haven't made it in the arts, it's because your audience hasn't found you yet. Okay. And once that happens, then you've made it.
Yeah.
Right? J.K. Rowling was rejected multiple times because they thought they didn't have an audience for it. And as soon as 2 of her books came out, everybody was on board.
Yeah, and I think
that's the patience game that I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, it's also with content creation. I think we take a lot of inspiration from Ali Abdaal.
Yeah,
and
I do.
And also Matt DeVello. They all talk about slow growth, and just being persistent and consistent.
Those 2 people helped me a lot realizing that thing. Yeah. What you're talking about, the slow growth thing. Hard work is hard because of a reason, and it pays. Everything is exponential.
Yeah.
So right now we're at the really flat end of the curve. Mm-hmm. Like both of us speaking about the podcast, about my writing, about my YouTube stuff, everything. We're at the flat end of the curve right now. And the only thing that'll make the curve bend upwards is if we keep churning it out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I've learned. So I'm not even thinking about my next video going viral. I'm thinking about 80 videos from now, what am I going to be making? And is it going to be worthwhile? That's how I've trained myself.
And I think that virality aspect is
unsustainable.
Yeah. Like you'll have one video with like, whatever K views you're looking for, but then that won't be consistent. So what you're looking for is a dedicated, consistent audience.
A community. I was listening to Colin and Samir. Do you follow them on YouTube?
Who?
Colin and Samir?
No.
Bro, I'll send you their links. They're amazing. They're content creators as well in the way that Matt DeVella is and all these guys, but they make content for creators. That's their thing. And they were talking about exactly what you're saying about growing an audience, not an audience, a community.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I want from this podcast. I want engagement from people that love to listen to us, that basically enjoyed us talking to each other, and then they want to come back. Mm-hmm. Right? So like right now we have no guests on, so we have no pull, but then they're still watching. And then let's say we have a John Mayer on the podcast, and then the John Mayer's fans come in, and then like that synergy is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, bridging that gap between
and that only happens with consistency, bro. You got to keep doing it.
And I guess it's not even with podcasts, it's whatever you're doing in life.
Yeah. This is a common rule for anything.
Yeah.
If it's engineering, if it's accounting, if it's writing a book.
If you're not good at calculus.
Everything.
Keep practicing.
Literally, that's what I've learned. I learned it the hard way, but that's literally the key of success, is that you got to keep churning it out. It's consistency.
I agree. But that's some really good insight.
Yep. Thank you. That's my job. What else you got?
just I guess on like you talked about your personal.
How did
growth.
this podcast affect your life this year? I wanted to know that.
My life?
Because when we started it, we only had 9 episodes.
Yeah.
And this is our 31st. So we did 20 pods this year, which is not a lot. Like we should have done more, in my opinion, which we will hopefully do next year. But just the 20 podcasts that we did together, that's 20 hours of you and me sitting and talking to people or talking to each other.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
I guess in the beginning, I wasn't taking this as seriously as I should have.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, I was just venting my cricket.
Yeah.
I would like to think I have good insight about cricket.
I think you do.
I'm a decent analyst.
This is why I love talking cricket with you.
So that's how it began. But I guess once like these like Irfan Junaid or like other guests came on, I was like, okay, I got to take this seriously.
Yeah.
Because this can actually go somewhere.
Yeah.
And
then once you started taking it seriously, how was it then?
I think it was good. I think the quality of our conversations have propelled.
Yeah, I love the one that we're having right now.
Yeah, and I think I'm really proud to see where it's going. And so yeah, doing our podcast and then being into other podcasts, I think that helps a lot as well. I mean, you are the entertainment or the art that you consume.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be selective of what you are consuming.
Yeah.
And as people who are making content for other people, I think we need to give it our best.
Yeah. I think the switch happened for you when you started listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And because before that, you were like, who's going to listen to us talk for an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And then you started listening to talking to people for an hour and a half. And you were like, this is actually worthwhile. Because I was listening to Qazi Akbar today. I think the podcast that we were listening on the TV today was basically, he was saying this long form entertainment will always trump the masturbatory short form entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about TV shows. I'm talking about TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm talking about reels. I'm talking about 10-second videos that have set up punchline. That's never going to sustain. But something like this is always going to be like, it's always going to stay around because this is what fuels. I don't want to sound all mystical, but this is what fuels the soul, man.
Yeah.
When you sit and listen to people talk, or you talk to people for an hour and a half, that's when the real meaty stuff comes in.
Yeah, you're I think you're spot on, man. That's like, I couldn't have put it better myself. And so yeah, this year it's been great. I think I guess what I'm most proud of is on a personal level is finishing my degree.
Yeah.
I think I
want to do another whole podcast on that,
okay.
but because I still have a ways to go to finish my degree, which is weird because you're the younger brother, I'm the older one. But
everyone's on their own journey, man.
Hey, I don't mind it. I don't really care about
Barack
timing,
was
but
president at 50 or 45, and then Trump was at 73. So everyone's on
There we
their own
go.
journey. Don't compare.
I'm not. But what I'm saying is that I want to know your insight on after finishing graduation and the whole 4.5 year process that you went through. Was it worth it? Do you like it? Would you recommend?
Do you want me to summarize it in the most simplest of forms?
Right now, do that. Yeah.
It's exactly how Matt Damon felt when he won the Oscar.
Oh my God. I'll link that link in the bio and for people.
Yeah. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, Matt Damon was on the Graham Norton show, and he was expressing how he felt about winning the Oscar on the very first movie that him and Ben Affleck made. And I think that explains it pretty well. This is something that I was chasing for a very long time. I mean, I don't want to undermine my achievement, but this is 16 years worth of schooling. This is 16 years worth of waking up at 7 a.m., going to school, being focused, studying hard, putting in your blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
Getting into UFT and then like getting kicked in the balls so many times, being like, oh my God, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then like, I remember fondly that there was a point where you were like, I literally want to switch out.
Yeah. I wanted to give up, but there were times that I couldn't, keep doing it.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm like grateful of the people that I had in my life. They literally picked me up. It's kind of like I was in like Dark Knight Rises. I was in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then I had some really great friends who picked me up and told me, get your life together. You have potential. You can be something. You can do something.
Yeah.
And
100%.
This happened last year. So I set goals. I have this whiteboard on my wall
In your room,
with all of the courses that I've completed and all of the courses that I have left. And every single day for the past year and a half, I would wake up in the morning, I would look at that board, and that would be my goal. That would be, that drive that I had.
Yeah. I saw that.
to just put that X on every single course. And I'm still yet to put the X on the last few
Because
courses.
the results aren't in.
Hopefully I pass. But yeah, I made sure that, once I wrote my last exam, I took a breather. I took a moment to just soak everything in.
Necessary. It was very necessary.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that. Yeah, like I'm going through it right now, and I'm like, I've already trained myself to know that whenever this ends, the whole undergrad thing, that's not it. I already know that that's not it. My life is not in economics or marketing. To some extent, I guess, when you market videos and stuff like that. But I'm more in tune with the arts, and I feel like that's where my solace is. And I just cannot wait for this undergrad degree to be done so I can carry on with my life.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the daunting questions that you can ask yourself once you're done in your undergrad is, what's next?
Yeah. People have post-graduation depression. A lot of my friends are going through it, man. The thick of it right now.
I'm very grateful for everything, but graduating in the midst of a global pandemic where people are being laid off of their jobs, and unemployment in Toronto, especially, it's peaked since the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not the ideal time to be
it
a
puts
fresh
things
graduate.
into perspective. I guess it puts you in a dark mood.
Yeah. So I mean, that what's next question can sometimes consume you.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not trying to overthink it. It's just,
No, I think you got, obviously, I believe in this wholeheartedly. I think you got a great future ahead of you. And I think as long as you keep doing this podcast, you'll be fine. Honestly, I think you'll be great.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before you hit your stride and you move forward.
So what's next? What's 2021?
Before we get to 21, I wanted to talk about briefly, like a couple of minutes, give to our Spotify Wrapped.
Sure.
Do you have your phone with you?
I don't have my phone with me, but I think I do remember my Spotify Wrapped. My top 5 favorite artists were John Mayer,
of course.
No surprises. Coldplay, Snow Patrol.
What were your top songs? Do you remember that?
I do.
Top 5, give me it.
My number 1 favorite song was, my most listened song was Kabhi, Alvida, Kehna.
Why?
I just think that movie is underrated.
I think that movie's trash.
I think,
Sorry.
watch it again. That movie has aged really well.
Really?
That movie is way ahead of its time.
Okay.
And I think more
takes.
specifically,
Kabhi Alvida Kehna is ahead of its time, guys.
yes.
Heard it here first.
The songs from that movie, I mean, it's composed by Shankar Ehsaan Loy, one of the best composers.
Hands down.
They made Kal Ho Na Ho and so many other great movies. Dil Chahta Hai.
3 Idiots as
My
well.
favorite lyricist, Javed Akhtar, wrote that song. And it's sung by Sonu Nigam and Alka Yagnik. So you can't go wrong.
It was your most played of 2020.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say, I don't mind saying Alvida to 2020.
Yeah.
Alvida means goodbye for people for the Anglo-Saxon fans, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. Yeah. Sure.
My number 1 song was Church
Yeah.
by Coldplay. I think
That's a great song.
Phenomenal song. Phenomenal. Has to be one of the best Coldplay songs. And
when you add that perspective of
Exactly.
Amjad Sabri doing the backing vocals.
and it's so in the sonics that you have to actively look for it. That just moves me immensely.
And the fact that Coldplay gave him writing credits.
yes,
That's beautiful.
it's beautiful. I love that. That was my number 1 song of the year. Has to be. I mean, I still listen to it. I listened to it yesterday. Like, I love that song so much. And that encompasses my 2020, I feel like.
Yeah.
When I'm hurt, I'll go to your church.
Yeah.
That was the slogan for 2020, which is, I'm hurt. I feel defeated, neglected, reduced to nothing because of the pandemic. I feel completely stagnant.
Yeah.
But because of community, friendship, brotherhood, sisterhood, love, romance, I'll be picked up again.
Yeah.
That's it.
I
That
think
was my message.
I
for
want
2020.
to thank Spotify for, if it wasn't for Spotify, I would not be able to discover all of these fantastic indie artists that we did.
Oh my God. The amount of indie people that I discovered.
Omar Mukhtar,
Oh, hands down.
brilliant. Thanks for being on our podcast. man.
Twice.
Abdullah Qureshi, soon come.
Love him. Love him. Soon come. Stay tuned.
I know of Jain from India, Pratik Kuhad. You're not a big fan, but these are some really good music. They
Hands
make
down.
some good music. The band Bayan,
Kashmir. I heard so much Kashmir this year.
Yeah,
Loved it.
thank you, Spotify.
Thank you, Spotify. And yeah, I love the whole Spotify rap thing. I love looking at what people are listening to. I
Yeah.
love seeing what they've listened to, like from people like Irfan Junaid sharing his stuff to like my best friend.
Yeah.
It was just like
It's a good way of discovering new music.
new
as well.
music, what people are into. It really helps you determine what kind of people you want to be friends with. Because I don't want to be friends with someone whose number one song of the year was Yummy.
Oh, crap.
Right? That's where I draw the line.
Shots fired.
And yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So onwards to 2021. What are your plans for 21, man? You're done school. Is it going to be all work and no play? Is it going to be all podcast and no play? What is it going to be? What's 21 looking out for you?
I think I would like to believe that I'm still young. So I want to...
You are young. Let me just tell you that. As someone who's actively older than you
Yeah.
at all times, forever, you are young. Chill out.
I would like to try out different things and kind of really discover what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
Because when you're a fresh graduate in a brown household, a lot of people would throw a lot of free advice to you. And they will...
This is why I put this here.
Yeah.
This the red buses from London's like piggy banks thingy.
Okay.
Anytime anybody has some advice, you literally have to take them this in front of them, be like, first give me $10.
Yeah.
Put the money in the can before you dish out your useless advice.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And
And it's just them flaunting, their experiences of what they
Imran Khan said this, right? Like every time you have an advice, pay me,
Yeah.
and then you get to say what you want to say.
Yeah, for sure. That's how
And
it is.
yeah, that's how literally it is. I feel like for the most part, 21 is going to be good for you.
Hopefully, yeah. I want to try, with different things. I want to experience different things in terms of like work and career. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
And then in terms of this podcast, I'm looking to be a lot more consistent,
Engaged,
and
consistent.
Yeah,
That's the same thing for me. for
yeah. I'm
this
just trying to like
podcast.
up the quality from
I think
the
we
last
did
episode.
from coming to where we came from the basement up into the room with the equipment that we have, the lights, the setup. I think we've come a long way.
Yeah.
And I love it.
And kudos to you, man. You keep pushing me, and then you keep pushing this podcast as well.
I like
So-
doing it. I love talking to you. I love talking to people that of interest. Like if you had told me literally last year this time that Irfan Junaid and I would be friends, I would not have believed you. Someone like Ghazi Akbar, you know how smart that dude is? We're buds.
Yeah.
I love that this podcast has allowed us to make those relationships. And
It's kind of opened doors to a different realm of people.
of people. And
exist,
like even our parents are like, when's your next episode? We want to listen to it. And that just goes to show that how much they appreciate what we're doing as well.
Yeah.
And
So what about you? What's 2021 saying?
man,
2K21.
I'm finishing up my draft. It's done. Got to get it hopefully published. That's what I'm looking at. Agents, deals. That's the thing that I'm looking at for 21.
Yeah. Best of luck.
And
man.
then and then this podcast, I wanted this to be the defining thing. I want the YouTube channel that I'm actively working on to be somewhere as well. Like these are obviously everybody has resolutions and all that stuff. And like these are all like materialistic and tangible things. But honestly, personally speaking, I just want to be the best version of myself that I can be in 21. Because I think I was the best version of myself in 2020.
Yeah.
And I want to be better than that. And then better than that. And hopefully if I have someone in my life, I want to be good to them and then good to my parents, my family, my friends, people that look up to me, people I look up to, all that stuff. Like that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful, man. Like it's just
I think we should end up on that one.
striving for greatness
Yeah.
and just trying to be better than yesterday.
And wrapping it all together, take Soul's message, the movie Soul,
Yeah.
and carry it forward.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to live life. The way that he finds at the end, when he's on the piano, spoiler alert, and he's going through his thoughts, that's the essence of everything. Everything. When we look back, I will not look back at the views that this video had, but what a great conversation we just had on the 31st, on New Year's Eve.
I'm tearing up.
There we go.
Let's get it.
All right. I think we should leave everybody on that note. If you've made it to this point, you have already cried a bunch of times because
Yeah.
I feel like when you're grateful, happy tears are a lot nicer to come. And sad tears are okay too, but the happy tears I like. That's why in Soul, when I had happy tears at the end, I was like, oh my God, this is great. leaving everybody on this positive note in 2020 and leaving 2020 forever for good. I hope everybody has a healthy 2021. I hope everybody has a positive 2021. I hope your dreams come true. I hope whatever you're striving to do happens. That's the last word from me in 2020.
Just try to be better than yesterday. And if you haven't achieved anything in 2020, that it's been a tough year. Yeah. You being alive 100%. And healthy and breathing, that's a testament to your drive. And I think, it's 2020 is a year that a lot of us will not want to look back on.
Nope.
And that's totally fine. But it's just never too late. Just chase your dreams, do what you want to do. Every morning, it's a new chance. It's an opportunity. It's never too late to change, but it's always too late to not change. So I'm going to leave you with that.
All right. Everybody stay safe. Take care. Adios. Salam. Shalom. Bye.
Take care.